We are back here on Sportsline. Phone lines are open. 737-7767. Talking about the Buccaneers win in Super Bowl 55 on their home field in Tampa. 31-9 over the Chiefs. Tom Brady gets ring number 7. We go to the lines. Say hello to Holly. Holly, good evening. Welcome to Sportsline.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to talk about what you were saying with Tom Brady, just how phenomenal, he is, and with winning the Super Bowl, because he took the team that had the longest streak from the last time Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl, was the first time that they won it, until till this year. It was like the longest streak in NFL history before they were able to win. So the fact that Tom Brady had went to a team that had the longest streak between winning the first Super Bowl and then winning the second one, that just speaks to his ability as a quarterback.
Yeah, it's not quite the longest streak. It was 18 years, which is a very, very long time. It's not quite the longest streak in NFL history, but it is remarkable. Tampa Bay had one winning season in the last dozen years. So it's not just that they hadn't won the Super Bowl. They hadn't even been really a relevant team in the postseason discussion. And in year one, he walks in and wins the whole thing. So I think your point is exactly right. To leave New England, which, by the way, not that he needed to worry about his legacy, but that's kind of a risky move, as much as he'd won up there, to go say, yeah, I'll just go be the Bucs QB now, because you have no idea how that's going to play out. And instead he goes down there and wins the Super Bowl. It is an amazing story, Holly.
And it's a great comeback for Tampa Bay. It's good for their franchise. It's good for their coach, who's like the oldest coach for winning the Super Bowl. And then Tom Brady's the oldest quarterback to win the Super Bowl. So it just shows that, age doesn't really matter. It's really about, ability and just good performance.
Yeah, they say life starts at 40. I'm starting to believe it now after watching Brady. So, Holly, thank you very much for the call. It was a remarkable performance. There is no question about it. Bruce Arians is a great story, too. You're talking about a guy who has risked a lot in his life. He's got the saying, it's really his mantra, that no risk it, no biscuit. Well, he's lived by that. This is a guy who was a bartender at one point during his career to supplement his coaching dream. He works his way up. He finally gets a chance to be an interim head coach in the NFL at age 60 because Chuck Pagano got cancer in Indianapolis. Difficult circumstances, obviously. He does a good job there, ultimately gets the job in Arizona, gets to an NFC championship game out there, and now he gets the job in Tampa Bay. He gets Tom Brady in his second year there, and he wins the Super Bowl title at age 68. Just a remarkable, remarkable story for Bruce Arians as well, about sticking with it, and hopefully good things happen to good people at some point. But it's just amazing. And I want to bounce back on something that we talked a little bit about here on the show a couple of weeks ago after the NFC Championship game, in which Tom Brady and the Bucs went to Green Bay and won. And I brought up the idea that a year ago at that time, we were just coming off a Titans loss in the AFC Championship game. And the odds on where Tom Brady would land in free agency in the offseason, if he was going to leave New England, skewed very much in favor of Tennessee. That the odds and the projections were that Brady would sign with the Titans if he was going to leave New England. And I said it at the time last year on multiple different platforms that I thought the Titans should be all in on that move if, and this was a big if at the time, but if they knew that Brady was healthy. Because he did not play particularly well last year, didn't play great against the Titans in the playoffs. But the question to me wasn't, is Tom Brady great? It was, how much of that might be some injury he's going through, and how much is that this Patriots team just isn't very good? But I thought if you had the assurance that Brady was healthy, that you've got to roll the dice on that, because you're talking about the greatest player in the history of the NFL. And if he could come to your franchise and provide all the things I was talking about earlier, those late night text messages telling guys who haven't been there before what to expect and that they will win, the locker room camaraderie that comes around, the guys who signed in Tampa Bay after Brady was signed himself just because they wanted to play. Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement just to play with TB again. Antonio Brown becoming a good soldier and coming in and not demanding anything more than his role just because he wanted the chance to play with Tom Brady and win with Tom Brady. Leonard Fournette, who had been a guy that was hard to motivate week in and week out throughout the course of his career, when he was freed up, choosing to go to Tampa Bay for the opportunity to play with Tom Brady. It's those things that Brady brings to the table that made me think at the time that that's why you roll the dice here. And again, it was nothing against Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill has been a very good quarterback. He's shown that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league coming to Tennessee. And I think he's a great fit within the offense that Arthur Smith and the Titans wanted to run. And presumably will continue to be a good fit moving forward. But when you have the opportunity to get the GOAT, don't you have to kick the tires on that? I mean, we're not just talking about another player here. We're talking about the greatest player in NFL history. I thought it was worth the move at the time. The Titans apparently thought there were other things they could do and that Tannehill was the right quarterback for them, and maybe that he'd be the right quarterback for a longer period of time. That plays into the decision as well. And so they gave him a 4-year, $118 million deal, and he's their quarterback moving forward, and that's fine. And I don't know that Brady would have been better than Tannehill this year. Tannehill's numbers were phenomenal. He set a franchise record for touchdowns. He was really good touchdown to turnover ratio on the year. He orchestrated the best offense in franchise history. It's hard to say anything bad about Ryan Tannehill at all. So don't take it that way. But it's all the other things that Brady does that makes me think that it's possible that the season would have looked different with him at the helm. There's no way to know that. Obviously, we can't go out now and run it back with Brady as the Titans QB and see how the season would play out. You don't get that luxury in life. So this is all speculation. But I've also seen columns written and discussion on sports radio and elsewhere of people saying, oh, no, Brady wouldn't do anything more than Tannehill would do. Tannehill was good, and it's all about the defense stunk. Tannehill doesn't play defense. That's right. And neither would Brady. But the Tampa Bay defense was better this year with a lot of the same pieces with Brady. Everything else about Tampa Bay got better this year with Brady. And so I don't think it's crazy to ask the question, if you bring in the greatest player of all time, does everyone else just pick up their game? Pick up their focus, pick up their energy, pick up how much they watch film, how early they get in, how late they stay? Does that just become infectious? Do you not want to let that guy down? Or better yet, do you want to live up to that standard? Because in everybody's heart, you want to be the greatest that you can be, right? In anything that you do, you want to be the greatest that you can be. And certainly professional athletes have that level of motivation. So when the greatest walks into your building, don't you think you pay attention a little bit more? What time did he get in this morning? What did he have for breakfast? How often is he in the weight room? He's watching film again? It's those types of things that when that guy walks in, it rubs off on everybody. And most normal players don't carry that weight. They're just a guy like everybody else. Tom Brady's not just a guy. He is the GOAT. And so I think it's okay to revisit that conversation if the Titans made the right move or not. It's not going to change anything now. Brady certainly feels like he made the right choice by ending up in Tampa. And the Titans have Tannehill under contract for a while. So that's not going to change. But when you think about it, and what maybe could have been, I don't think it is crazy to ask the question, if Brady would have come to Tennessee, would this season have played out differently? Would the defense have been a little bit better? Would the team, just in general, have been a little bit better? When they got to the playoffs and things weren't clicking in all cylinders against the Ravens, would Brady's experience and his guile get you to the finish line in that game? Does a guy like him maybe get you over the hump in the one game you don't play well in the playoffs? You got to play well in the playoffs. It's not all on one guy. It's not Tampa Bay didn't win because Tom Brady led them throughout the entire course of the playoffs. Not saying that. They had to play good football. And they did. They were awesome in New Orleans. They were really darn good in Green Bay on the frozen tundra. And they were phenomenal yesterday against Kansas City. You know the game they didn't play all that well, though? It was the first one. Team that hadn't been in the playoffs for a long time. Bunch of guys who didn't have a lot, if any, playoff experience. They're playing a team with a losing record in an empty stadium in Washington. And you know who got them to the finish line in that game? Tom Brady. They won 31-23. It was tighter than any other game they played in the playoffs. But you know who wasn't fazed by any part of that? Brady. And that's the question, is when you get in that tough game, does that guy maybe win you that one game? So then you can regroup and you can keep playing. Or maybe you play a couple great games, but all of a sudden, like last year with the Titans, you run up against a really good team like the Chiefs. Things aren't clicking quite as well. Does Brady win you that game? Again, there's no way to know. But the mounting evidence is that Tom Brady wins. He wins everywhere he goes, and he wins at a high level. And later in his career, he's even better at it. So when you have a great team, when you have a bunch of really good pieces, and you're sitting one step away from what you think your ultimate dream is, and what the ultimate mission is, and you're trying to think, what's the one piece, or what are the couple pieces we could have that would get us over the top? And the option out there is the greatest player in the history of the league. I wanted the Titans to take that shot last year. And again, they did, and we're never going to know what that looked like. But when you watch yesterday, it just cemented the fact that Brady has an impact that goes beyond the numbers. It goes beyond the statistics. And ultimately, the only thing that matters when it comes to the numbers are the W's and the rings. And Brady just extended by 4 his record number of playoff victories this year and just added a ring for a 7th finger. That is a resume that is unparalleled. Back to the phones we go. 737-7767 is the number. Say what's up to Tony. Tony, how you doing? Welcome to Sportsline.
Hey, I'm glad you are on the show talking about the Super Bowl. The thing I took up yesterday was their defense stayed on him the whole game to give him opportunity. So I know the defense win games the same way I've been commenting on for years, because that's how the Giants got to the Super Bowl. The defense is on the field. But I want to give credit to that offensive line, too. They held up a highly capable defensive team like Kansas City and gave Brady time to do what he had to do. But he didn't do it on his own. Brady didn't. he had the support of his teams, and I think he should have been credited more because Donovan Sue and Pierre Paul, they were all on him. They had the energy to chase him all the way down the field in the last quarter, and he couldn't even get the pass off. Yep. He was running for his life. And three of them crushed him on a defensive play, and the officials called some kind of stuff like some kind of play, like they called some kind of foul because of that, against the defense for doing that. They're doing the job. They didn't intentionally come in there like that, but it was their job to do it, and they shut him down. But I want to just say, I know Bill Belichick is feeling bad today because they separated him from Brady, who was actually the one doing the job in New England. And I just appreciate what he did coming down there, but he had to have assistance and the back end of those players, and they should have been getting credit for it.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question, Tony. I appreciate your call and thoughts. This was a really good Tampa Bay team. A really good Tampa Bay team. One of the great teams, I think, in the playoffs by the time they actually got there and put it all together. But also remember that a lot of those guys were there last year when they went 7-9. So the common denominator in the outlier here, the thing that changed, is the fact that Brady came in, and I think he rallied them all together. But he did not do it alone at all. And that's one of the other amazing things about Brady. I mean, this Tampa Bay team was better than at least a couple of the New England teams that he won Super Bowls there with. But the amazing thing about Brady is he gets guys to believe they can play at a higher level than they normally do. And he uses every single type of guy in every single different situation. I mean, even yesterday, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are the guys that are the guys in the passing game for Tampa Bay. Who were the big guys in the first half yesterday? It was Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown, two guys that actually have ties to Brady in New England, specifically Gronk. But they're who caught the 3 touchdowns in the first half. One, they're not in Tampa Bay if it's not for Brady. But two, Kansas City tried its best to take away Evans and to take away Godwin. So what does Brady do? He has a different game plan. And Tony just brought up some of the penalties that came into factor. Well, Kansas City is one of the most penalized teams in the league. Brady understood that. He understood how they played him the first time around, which was effective when Kansas City won in Tampa Bay. And he looked at his guys and said, look, we know what they do. We know what they're not good at. We need to attack them that way. And that's what they did. And then the final thing on that is the impact of the defense and a pass rush. And we know that all too well here in Tennessee because that's been the issue for the Titans defense for some time, is not being able to get after the quarterback and impact the passer. Well, when you look at that game last night, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. He was. And that is a credit to Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh and JPP. Those guys got after it. It helps to have a pass rush, but it also helps to stay healthy too. And this was not talked about nearly enough leading up to the game. Eric Fisher out with a torn Achilles. It got hurt late in the win in the AFC Championship game. You knew that was bad because he's a stud. But you didn't get to see the true impact at the end of that game, and you had no idea how the Chiefs would really piece it together over the next couple of weeks. They chose to move 3 different spots on the offensive line: right tackle to left tackle, right guard to right tackle, and then back up in at right guard. So 60% of their offensive line looked different in the Super Bowl than it had at any point throughout the course of the season up against that defensive front of the Bucs. And it looked like it. The Bucs got after him, and Patrick Mahomes was never able to get comfortable. He was often on the run. He was often outside of the pocket, and he just really, really struggled in a way that we've really never seen from Patrick Mahomes in his career. But it goes back to the Chiefs losing Fisher, having to makeshift that offensive line, and then the Bucs getting after him. Gotta take a break. We'll be right back.